Thanks, Donna. I know it's warm in here, so I'm going to do my part to get you out of here quickly. First of all, Oldcastle's parent company is CRH. It's a Dublin-based company that's traded on the Dublin, London, and New York Stock Exchange. About half the operations of CRH are conducted over in Europe and Asia, and the other half in America. Approximately half the sales volumes in the U.S. and the rest of it being overseas. Unfortunately, half the profits don't come from the U.S. yet. If you look at our product, the breadth of product and such, we classify three distinct activities. First is materials, which is the largest. We are the largest construction material supplier in the U.S., and that includes asphalt, number one in asphalt, number three in aggregate cement products for roadways and such. We also are a large provider of products, concrete blocks, and other associated items, and also distribution. We own a company in the U.S. That distributes building products items. We are headquartered, the Americas operations are headquartered in Atlanta. Some of the products, I represent building products, and some of the products that we manufacture both here in Georgia and across North America are cement blocks. We refer to it as our masonry products. Also bagged cement, if you're familiar with the Sacrete brand, that's a Bonsall American company, which is part of building products. Also precast products, if you've seen the precast structures and enclosures, those are part of our products. And if you've been to some of the retail chains with the mulch, we're probably the largest provider of landscape materials for many of the retailers in the U.S. Speaking of Georgia, we have 21 plants in Georgia, manufacturing plants, where we ship primarily in shorter haul parameters for most of our products. And you can see there's a good concentration in Atlanta, which pretty much tracks to the population of Georgia. Some of the key transportation considerations that we're involved with, first of all, equipment. Most of our products move on flatbed trailers, and that represents probably 98% of what we ship are on flatbeds. Product value, typically for building products, our product value is about $3,000 a truckload, which is why the delivery area is so small. We typically deliver within a 200-mile radius of our shipping plants, which is also why we have so many plants. Building products alone has 327 plants across the U.S. and eastern Canada to serve our market areas. The payload is typically 49,000 pounds. We're very open and anxious to increase that. In fact, we use some lightweight equipment. In some product groups, we actually scale 54,000 pounds. Seasonality, we're very seasonal, very much tied to the spring season, as you might suspect, with a large amount of landscape products and such. And the volume, we ship over 1 million outbound products from those 327 locations. In Georgia, about 75,000 shipments a year across mostly in the Georgia market area. From a transportation provider, which probably is what you'd be most interested in, we typically use local and regional flatbed carriers in addition to our private fleet. Some of the aspects that we look at from our providers are pickup and delivery within the same day. We operate with previous day notification in many cases where we have the ability to plan. And we've got to be able to meet delivery appointments. In our case, for the masonry side, many times we're meeting cranes and crews for our products, so very sensitive to those appointments, as well as the big box retailers, as those of you who work with them are very familiar with the requirements on appointments and meeting those schedules. In our case, the driver's responsible for securing our loads, and we do that on site for safety purposes. But typically, we do not require tarping our product. Obviously, since it's outside, it doesn't require a lot of protection from the elements. From a third-party logistics provider standpoint, as I mentioned to you, we have a great deal of volume in the spring. and the demand and the capacity requirements for that dictate that we use as many sources as possible to find truckload flatbed capacity. So we do use a great deal of third-party providers. We also, outside the 200 mile, and I mentioned to you most of our shipments are within 200 miles, we do have situations where we're moving product across the U.S. to meet large projects and such. And when that happens, often we'll bring in a third-party provider to help us on the longer haul, since that's not our bread and butter. Doesn't happen that often. And a normal course of one of those projects might be 100 truckloads over a 1-month period of time, moving, for example, from Georgia up to New York for a project. And we do bring in third parties to assist us with that. We also have some high volume shipping sites, which we also work out partnerships with third parties on that to handle a certain element of that freight. And also custom delivery applications. Again, sometimes with the projects we're involved with, it requires special delivery requirements that, in our case, we might not be able to provide with our normal carriers or with our private fleet. As far as qualifying our providers, we require a freight vendor form that typically just gives us a lot of information about the carrier and the contact points. What do we need to know about the carrier? What areas does he serve? If it's a third party, what type of products or projects and products do they offer us? And then we have a carrier broker agreement. Whether you're a carrier or a broker, we have a separate agreement that we require to be executed. We try and make it as short as possible, and we've gone from, in the last 2 years, we've gone from 27 pages down to 7 pages. We're very, very happy about that. We also require proof of operating authority. If it's a carrier or a broker, we want that MC number and or the DOT number that's involved. We also pull the CSA scores. With that DOT number or with that MC number, we'll pull the CSA scores to make sure that we're dealing with safety-conscious carriers and such. Certificates of insurance, we require auto liability, general liability, workers' comp, and cargo coverage. And as far as the limits, I think we're very, very reasonable with the limits we require. It's basically as much as you'll give us. Also, we require that a carrier provides the DOT random drug and alcohol test program confirmation, and then the typical W-9. I share that with you because from our standpoint, we do know we've got big pockets and we're very susceptible to liability. So when we're dealing with our carriers or third parties, we look at them as an extension of our own private fleet. With the partnership and the liability you have with our products and such, we're very, very cognizant of what those requirements will be. Some of the systems that we utilize are transportation management system. We do EDI load tendering, either EDI or email, and require confirmations. We do delivery appointment confirmations, and it changes from group to group. We have some business units that actually make their own appointments, and then the loads tender with a delivery appointment already. In other cases, we provide it to our carriers and third parties and ask them to make the appointment and respond back to us with those appointment times. We also require notification of in-transit issues if a carrier is going to be late, there's a driver problem, or the infamous mechanical failure. We need to know that as soon as possible, and that can be done by EDI or email. Delivery confirmations, obviously, we need to have a delivery confirmation. And then we also offer a self-billing. Basically, all of our carriers, when they're loaded in with their rates and such, when the load is tendered, we pull up your contract rate and distribute that to you in a load tender form, and then that we consider that to be confirmation. And then based on the terms that we work out with you, which are always very agreeable to us, we provide a self-billing process and ACH payment. I will mention to you that from our standpoint, we talked about CSA. One of the things in dealing with liability as such, we use an outside party, a third party, that basically we store all the contracts, the certificates of insurance, as well as any documentation associated with that carrier. And we also get updates from CSA. The day CSA scores come out from the FMCSA, we update to our file. If a carrier has a deficit, and for those of us that are dealing with the CSA right now, that's not unusual to have one deficit. If it's one deficit, we can understand it depending on what the basic behavior is. If it's two, then that causes a red flag for us. Under any circumstances, we do ask for feedback from the carrier on how they're responding to that. And so from our standpoint, the carrier base, that information from the third party is tied into our TMS system and is also tied into the accounts payable system, so that it's all tied out together. So we know that when we qualify a carrier, that carrier is set up from a safety standpoint, from a TMS standpoint, and from a payment standpoint. So with that said, I hope you appreciated that as much as I appreciated my dessert, which I thought was outstanding.